All right, let's unpack this. Today, we are really digging into someone whose life, well, it's more than just a story, isn't it? It's like a spiritual manifesto set to this relentless beat.
Absolutely. We're talking Robert Nesta Marley.
Exactly. And our mission here, for you listening, is to get a real handle on him fast. We want that thorough, kind of emotional, culturally deep understanding of his life, the music, definitely the spiritual mission, and just his incredible global impact.
And we're using his own journey, right, as the way into understanding how reggae exploded, how Rastafari went global.
Yeah, because when you look at Marley, you have to understand, you're not just seeing a musician. Not even close.
No, he was a total pioneer. He took reggae, ska, rocksteady, mashed them up into something completely new.
And then send it out to the whole world.
Yeah, his global status came almost immediately, which is just unheard of for someone coming out of the Caribbean in the 70s. He was just this huge, instantly recognizable voice, a monumental figure.
And crucially, that fame, that recognition, it was built on conflict, wasn't it? He couldn't just be an entertainer.
Impossible.
He was right away, like irreversibly, a Rastafarian symbol. And that alone made him controversial.
Hugely controversial,
Yeah.
especially in the halls of power, Jamaica, abroad, everywhere.
Because his music wasn't background noise, it was a demand. A direct, outspoken call for democratic social reforms, for legalizing cannabis, which for him was a sacrament, a religious thing.
Completely. And Pan-Africanism, too. That was core.
He basically embodied that tension, didn't he, between what Rastas called Babylon, the oppressive system, the state,
Right.
and Zion, the promised land, freedom, spirituality. He lived that conflict. Chapter 1, Roots and 9 Mile.
And to really get the scale of that conflict and, well, the eventual triumph, you've got to start right at the beginning. In the soil. Where did this revolutionary figure come from?
Right back to the start.
He was born Robert Nesta Marley, February 6, 1945. Not in Kingston, but way out in the country, in 9 Mile, St. Anne Parish, on his maternal grandfather's farm.
And that setting, the small farm in the hills, it's such a stark contrast to where he ended up, isn't it?
Totally. A place steeped in traditional Afro-Jamaican culture, really removed from the political heat of Kingston.
But even his birth, it was unusual from the get-go. His mother, Cedella Malcolm, she was young, just 18, Afro-Jamaican.
And his father, Norval Sinclair Marley. He was white Jamaican. Sources sometimes call him captain, but really he was a private in the British Army.
And the age gap.
Staggering. Norval was about 64 when Bob was born.
Wow.
So you have this biracial identity, this huge age difference. I mean, he was kind of outside the usual social boxes right from day one.
And that created hardship straight away. Norval was barely there, saw them rarely, didn't provide much financial support.
And then he died when Bob was only 10.
Yeah. So that sense of abandonment, growing up poor, marginalized, you hear that echo through his music, don't you?
Absolutely. Those songs, speaking for the common person, the struggler, the voiceless, it's baked into his story from the beginning.
There's that little anecdote, too, about his name.
Oh, yeah, the passport story. It's kind of symbolic, isn't it?
How so?
Well, supposedly, his birth name was Nesta Robert Marley. No. But the story goes that some passport official flipped it around to Robert Nesta.
Why?
Because he thought Nesta sounded like a girl's name. So even his official identity got tweaked by bureaucracy before he'd even sung a note. Just shows how his identity was always being shaped from the outside.
But the real game changer, the move that shifted everything, that was at age 12.
Yeah, leaving 9 Mile,
Right.
leaving that relatively quiet, if poor, rural life.
And heading with his mother into Trenchtown, Kingston.
Which was just intense, an incredibly challenging urban environment.
Yeah.
It wasn't just moving house, it was like a cultural detonation.
Exactly. Trenchtown, part of West Kingston's ghettos. Notorious for poverty, sure, but also this unbelievably vibrant, creative melting pot.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Suddenly his whole sound world just explodes. He's not just hearing the farm rhythms anymore. He's hearing raw, driving ska music. He's hearing the latest R&B hits coming in from U.S. radio stations, over the airwaves.
And this move also brings together the core of his musical future, because he ends up living with Neville Livingston,
Bunny Wailer, yeah.
who becomes his musical partner. How did that happen?
Their parents, Cedella and Thaddeus Livingston, Bunny's dad, they actually had a daughter together. So Bob and Bunny became stepbrothers, basically, living under the same roof, bonding them early on, the future Wailers.
And what's interesting is they didn't start out wanting to be instrumentalists.
No, not at all. They were focused on being a vocal harmony group. Trenchtown was full of singers trying to make it.
And they found a mentor.
A crucial one. Joe Higgs, from the duo Higgs and Wilson. He lived nearby. Higgs really took them. Marley, Bunny, and later Peter Tosh, and honed their sound, developed those tight, precise vocal harmonies that became the bedrock of the Wailers.
And Higgs taught Marley guitar too.
Yeah, gave him that vital tool, showed him how to play, really set him on his path. Hashtag tag chapter 2, the rise of the Wailers.
So from these vocal lessons, the group starts to form. But they went through a few names first, didn't they? Sounds like a bit of an identity crisis.
Yeah, a few iterations. They started as the Teenagers, a bit generic.
Definitely.
Then the Wailing Rude Boys, which had more edge. Then the Wailing Wailers.
Getting closer.
And finally, they just landed on the Wailers. Simple, powerful, maybe a little bit menacing. Perfect.
And the initial lineup was bigger than the famous trio.
Oh, yeah. You had Bob, Peter Tosh, Bunny Wailer, of course, but also Junior Braithwaite, Beverly Kelso, and Cherry Smith. It was a larger collective at first.
And they found success pretty quickly in Jamaica.
Remarkably quickly. They got picked up by Coxsone Dodd, the legendary producer at Studio One.
And that led to Simmer Down.
Yeah, February 1964. The song was aimed right at the Rude Boys, the sort of street gangs in Kingston, telling them to cool it. And boom, it was a massive Jamaican #1 hit.
Sold something like 70,000 copies.
That's the estimate, yeah. Huge for the local market back then.
So suddenly, they're the biggest thing on the island. They're working with top session musicians at Studio One, guys like Ernest Ranglin on guitar, Jackie Matu on keyboards.
Legends.
They're riding high, but then things start to shift internally.
Right. By 1966, the lineup had basically settled into that iconic core, Marley, Tosh, and Wailer.
And just as they hit that point, Marley does something completely unexpected. He leaves.
It's one of the strangest parts of his story, really.
Yeah.
In 66, right after marrying Rita Anderson, he just takes off, moves temporarily to Wilmington, Delaware in the U.S.
Delaware. Why?
His mother had remarried a U.S. civil servant and was living there, so he went to be near her for a while. But just imagine the shift. The rising star of Jamaican music, suddenly in this, dull, industrial town in the American Northeast.
It's mind-boggling. And he wasn't playing gigs.
No way. He was working under an alias, Donald Marley.
Donald Marley, seriously?
Yep. Got a job as a lab assistant at DuPont first. Then he worked on the assembly line at a Chrysler plant in Newark, Delaware. Operated a forklift.
Wow. The future voice of global liberation, working on a factory line, moving car parts, it really grounds him, doesn't it? Shows the struggle was real.
Absolutely. And that time, short as it was, must have given him this really direct, gritty understanding of the industrial world of Babylon.
But the real transformation, the one that defined his whole image later, that happened when he got back to Jamaica.
That's right. This is when Marley formally, publicly, embraces the Rastafari faith, starts growing his dreadlocks. The music is about to become totally fused with his beliefs.
And this spiritual awakening happens alongside a new musical partnership, right? With Lee Scratch Perry.
Scratch, yeah. A brilliant but definitely contentious collaboration. Perry and his studio band, the Upsetters.
Why was Perry so important? They called him the mad scientist of reggae.
Because he was. Perry was a sonic genius. He pushed the Wailers, helped them find this denser, more spiritual, kind of raw sound. Some of their best early stuff came out of that period.
How did he do it?
Perry treated the recording studio like another instrument. All sorts of unconventional techniques. He really forced them to slow down the tempo, move away from that fast ska beat, and focus more on the groove, the message.
But it wasn't a smooth relationship.
No, unfortunately. Like a lot of artists back then, there were big arguments about money, about recording rights. It ended badly.
And that slowing down, that wasn't just Perry, was it? The whole music scene was shifting.
Exactly. Around 1969, rocksteady, which was already slower than ska, started giving way to this new rhythm, influenced heavily by the Maidles track Do the Reggae.
And that became reggae. Why was that slower beat so important for Marley's message?
Well, think about it. Ska was fast, energetic, great for dancing, fun.
Right.
Reggae. It was slower, more hypnotic, steady. It created space for the bass line to really throb like a heartbeat, and crucially, space for the lyrics, for the stories, the political messages, the spiritual ideas to actually sink in. It demanded you listen, meditate on it, not just dance.
So it was the perfect vehicle for what he wanted to say.
Absolutely. By the time they recorded the best of the Wailers in 1971, those upfront ska horns were gone, replaced by this new electric kind of meditative pulse, the perfect sound for a prophet. Hashtag Chapter 3, Fire and Revolution.
Let's really get into the heart of that message then. Once he embraced Rastafari, his music just became this powerful blend of, well, spiritual mission and political statement.
Totally. He wasn't just, singing about Rastafari. He wove its culture, its language, its core beliefs right into the music itself. And then he took that package global, put it right on the international stage.
What are the absolute core tenets we need to understand?
Well, central, absolutely central, is the belief in Haile Selassie I, the Emperor of Ethiopia, as an incarnation of God, of Jah.
Right.
And for many Rastas, especially back then, this offered this powerful sense of identity, of self-worth, especially for marginalized Jamaicans. It connected them to Africa, to Zion, this idealized homeland.
And this faith immediately put him on a collision course with the authorities, didn't it? Especially over cannabis.
Oh, absolutely. The establishment Babylon saw ganja as just, a dangerous drug.
But for Marley and Rastafarians,
it was profoundly religious, a sacrament, an aid to meditation, to spiritual insight, to reasoning. They point to biblical passages.
So even after he got arrested for possession back in '68, he didn't back down.
Not at all. He doubled down, made it a visible, unapologetic part of who he was, based entirely on his faith.
And that faith directly fueled his political views, too. You mentioned Pan-Africanism.
Yeah, it wasn't just some casual interest for him. It was fundamental. Came straight from Rasta teachings, heavily influenced by Marcus Garvey's philosophy, the call for African unity, for repatriation.
And you hear that fire in the music, that anti-imperialist stand.
Burning bright. Tracks like Zimbabwe, Africa Unite, and, the stark power of redemption song. It became the soundtrack for people fighting for freedom all over the world.
But that potent mixed faith, politics, music, it made him incredibly influential, but also a target, especially in Jamaica in the 70s.
Yeah, the island was incredibly tense, just simmering with political violence, driven by these rival political factions, the PMP and the JLP, and fueled by poverty and gang warfare.
And all that tension just erupted in that moment, the assassination attempt.
Yeah, a truly terrifying moment. It was December 3rd, 1976. The Prime Minister then, Michael Manley of the PMP, had organized this free concert, Smile Jamaica. The idea was supposedly to try and ease the political violence.
And Marley agreed to play.
He did. But in that polarized atmosphere, just agreeing to play was seen as taking a side, as supporting Manley.
And 2 days before the concert,
gunmen stormed his home on Hope Road, a targeted attack. Marley himself got hit, but luckily the wounds are minor, chest and arm.
But others weren't so lucky.
No. His manager, Don Taylor, was very seriously injured, and his wife, Rita Marley, was also badly hurt. The message seemed pretty clear. Silence him. Shut him up before the concert.
And the general feeling was this was political.
Overwhelmingly, yes. The belief was, and still is, that it was politically motivated. Opponents of Manley saw the concert as a PNP rally, basically, and Marley, with his huge influence, was seen as, well, a pawn or even a player in that dangerous game.
But Marley's response, that was the ultimate act of defiance, wasn't it?
Incredible. Just 2 days later, 2 days after being shot at, injured, seeing his wife and manager gunned down, he still went on stage.
In front of 80,000 people.
Yeah. And when people asked him why risk it, he gave that famous line, "The people who are trying to make this world worse are not taking the day off. Why should I?"
Wow. That just cemented his image, didn't it? The wounded prophet putting the mission above everything.
Absolutely. And he didn't stop there. He tried to bring peace. He came back to Jamaica in 1978 for the One Love Peace concert.
And that's when the famous handshake happened.
That's the one. On stage, in this incredible moment of political theater, he managed to get the two warring leaders, Michael Manley and his rival, Edward Seaga, to come up and shake hands, join hands together.
Just an unbelievable image, the power of music trying to bridge that divide. Hashtag Chapter 4, Exodus to the world.
But even with moments like that handshake,
Right.
the danger in Jamaica was still very real. That assassination attempt, it basically forced him into exile.
Self-imposed exile, yeah. But ironically, that's when his career just went stratospheric globally.
It really did. Though the seeds were sown a bit earlier, back in '72, when the Wailers went looking for Chris Blackwell at Island Records.
And they weren't initially looking for a big record deal, were they?
No, mostly just trying to get some back royalties they felt they were owed.
But Blackwell saw something much bigger.
Oh, yeah. Blackwell, himself, a white Jamaican with deep roots in the island's music scene, he saw a chance to do something huge. He didn't just see a reggae band. He saw someone who could cross over, who could break into the massive rock markets in the US and Europe.
How did he plan to do that? Because reggae wasn't really on rock radio back then.
Exactly. Blackwell realized he couldn't just sell it as Jamaican music for Jamaicans or reggae fans. He had to package Marley, present him to the rock audience. He saw Marley as this charismatic, revolutionary figure, a natural rock star, basically, if the presentation was right.
So he took a gamble.
A huge gamble. Gave them a 4,000-pound advance, which was unheard of for a reggae act then. Told them to go record an album with proper state-of-the-art studio production, the kind usually reserved for big rock bands.
And the result was Catch a Fire.
1973. And Blackwell was very hands-on. He remixed it, tweaked the sound. He kind of tempered the really heavy bass sound of traditional Jamaican roots music, made it a bit more palatable for Western ears, for radio.
And the packaging too, right? That Zippo lighter cover.
Iconic. Yeah, made it look cool, edgy, like a rock album. He was essentially selling this Rasta prophet as a rock and roll rebel. And it worked.
Then came Burnin' later that same year, and that had the key track.
I Shot the Sheriff.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it wasn't Marley's version that broke him internationally initially.
It was Clapton.
Eric Clapton, yeah. He was looking for material, heard Burnin', loved Sheriff, covered it in 1974.
And Clapton's version was a monster hit.
#1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the U.S. Massive worldwide. And suddenly, Bob Marley, the songwriter, was a household name. Island Records couldn't have bought that kind of exposure.
But success brought changes to the band too.
Yeah, that original Wailers trio, Marley, Tosh, Wailer, it fractured. Peter and Bunny left in 1974 to pursue solo careers. Different musical directions, different personalities.
But Marley kept going.
Absolutely. He just continued as Bob Marley and the Wailers, bringing in the incredible Barrett brothers, Aston on bass and Carlton on drums as a core rhythm section. His momentum just seemed unstoppable.
The hits started coming under his own name internationally too.
Right. That live version of No Woman, No Cry from the live album in '75, that was his first big international hit outside Jamaica. Raw, emotional, just connected with people everywhere.
And the U.S. market really opened up with Rastaman Vibration in '76.
Yeah, cracked the top 50 on the Billboard Soul charts. That was significant. And then came the shooting and the move to London. Exile from '76 to '79, basically for his own safety.
And that period in London produced maybe his greatest work.
Arguably, yeah. Exodus 1977. That album was just a masterpiece. It wasn't just roots reggae anymore. He was blending in blues, soul, even British rock influences. It felt bigger, more universal.
And commercially huge, especially in the UK.
Phenomenal. Stayed on the British charts for 56 weeks straight. Spawned massive UK hits. Waiting in Vain, Jamming, One Love People, Get Ready. It's the album Time magazine, later called the album of the century.
Incredible.
He followed up pretty quickly with Kaya in '78. A bit more laid back, maybe. Included that beautiful song, Is This Love?
And the video for that has a fun little piece of trivia, right?
Ah, yeah. Filmed in London at the Ketskedy Art Center. And one of the little kids dancing in the video is a very young Naomi Campbell.
No way.
Yeah. Just shows how Marley's influence was weaving itself into mainstream culture by then.
But even as the sound maybe got a bit smoother, more polished, the political fire never went out, did it?
Never. 1979, the album Survival. That was a fierce return to those Pan-African themes. A powerful statement supporting African liberation struggles. Tracks like Zimbabwe, explicitly backing the fight against white minority rule there, and Africa Unite.
And he put his actions where his music was. Appeared at anti-apartheid events.
Definitely. Like the Mandela Festival in Boston, raising awareness against the regime in South Africa. Yeah. He lived his message.
And then came his final studio album, released while he was alive, Uprising, in 1980.
Yeah, and in many ways it felt like a culmination, especially spiritually. It had Forever Living Jah, but also that absolutely stunning acoustic track, Redemption Song.
Which drew directly from Marcus Garvey.
Yeah, heavily influenced by a speech Garvey gave way back in 1937. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. It felt like Marley looking back, looking inward, reflecting on the whole journey, his mission, maybe even his own mortality. Chapter 5, the final struggle.
And as Marley was reaching this absolute peak, artistically, politically, this global icon, there was already this silent battle going on inside him.
Yeah, a deeply personal fight. It started back in July 1977. He got a diagnosis that was just devastating.
What was it exactly?
A cruel lentiginous melanoma. It's a specific, quite aggressive form of skin cancer. It was found under the nail of his right big toe.
And we need to clear up a common misconception here, right? It wasn't caused by a football injury.
No, that's a persistent myth. The football injury he had likely just drew attention to a lesion that was already cancerous. This type of melanoma often appears in the extremities, hands, feet, particularly in people with darker skin, and sadly, It was already there.
And the medical advice was immediate and drastic.
Yeah, the doctors were blunt. To have the best chance of stopping it spreading, they needed to amputate the toe immediately.
But Marley refused, absolutely refused. Why? This seems like a life or death decision.
It was. But for him, it collided directly with his Rastafari faith. It goes back to interpretations of biblical texts, particularly in Leviticus, about not cutting or marking the body. Rastafari belief holds the body as a sacred temple, something that must be kept whole. Amputation for him was a violation of that fundamental principle.
So instead of amputation,
He agreed only to have the nail and the nail bed removed. They did a skin graft from his thigh to cover it. He followed his faith, but medically, tragically, it gave the cancer the time it needed to spread, to metastasize.
Yet even knowing this, even as his health must have been starting to decline, he kept going, kept touring.
Incredibly, he finished the whole European leg of the Uprising tour after that diagnosis. The scale of his connection with people was just immense. He played to 100,000 people at the San Siro Stadium in Milan. Just imagine that energy.
His last big outdoor show was in Dublin, July 1980. He was literally fighting his own body to keep the music going.
He really was. And the end of that road, the performing part of it, came quite suddenly in the U.S. September 21st, 1980. He was just going for a jog in Central Park, New York, and he collapsed.
And the news was bad.
The worst. Tests confirmed the cancer had spread aggressively. Brain, lungs, liver.
His very last concert was just 2 days later.
Yeah, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A poignant final performance. Then the rest of the tour, obviously, was canceled.
And facing the limits of conventional medicine, which he'd already partly rejected, he looked for other options.
He did. He traveled to Bavaria in Germany to a clinic run by Dr. Joseph Issels, seeking this alternative holistic cancer treatment.
What did that involve?
It was controversial, based largely on detoxifying the body, specific diets, avoiding certain substances. It probably seemed more aligned with his own holistic worldview, his Rasta principles, than conventional treatments.
Did it work?
He stayed there for 8 months. But no, the cancer was just too advanced. The treatment couldn't stop it.
So he decided to go home.
Yeah, knowing the end was near, he boarded a flight back to Jamaica, back to the island he loved. But his condition got critically worse on the flight. They had to divert the plane
To Miami.
to Miami, Florida. And it was there, at the Cedars of Lebanon Hospital, on May 11th, 1981, that Robert Nesta Marley died. He was just 36 years old.
36, just unbelievable. And his final words, he spoke to his son, Ziggy.
Yeah, left him with this incredibly simple, but just devastatingly heavy message. Captured everything about his legacy, the hope, the burden. He said, "On your way up, take me up. On your way down, don't let me down." Hashtag, eptag, epilogue, redemption, fire eternal. His death just sent shockwaves around the world. Unbelievable grief. But there was another kind of unexpected spiritual twist to his story right near the end.
What was that?
Shortly before he died, in a move that definitely surprised a lot of his hardcore Rastafarian followers, Marley actually converted to Ethiopian Orthodox Christianity.
Really? When did this happen?
He was baptized in the church on November 4th, 1980, given the name Brahman Selassie.
Brahman Selassie. What does that mean?
It means light of the Holy Trinity.
Wow. So his funeral in Jamaica, it must have reflected that complexity.
It absolutely did. He received a state funeral, a huge honor, on May 21st, 1981. And it was this unique blend of ancient Ethiopian Orthodox rites and Rastafari tradition, a real fusion.
And the details of his burial, where he was laid to rest near 9 Mile, his birthplace, they're incredibly symbolic, aren't they?
They were profoundly symbolic. He was buried in a mausoleum, a chapel built near his childhood home. And inside the casket, they placed items that represented the whole man, his entire journey.
Like what?
His red Gibson Les Paul guitar, his cherished instrument, a Bible open to Psalm 23, "The Lord is my shepherd," and a stock of cannabis, placed there by Rita, his widow. It was like acknowledging all facets of him, the musician, the Christian convert, the Rasta prophet, all together in death.
The impact on Jamaica itself was just immense. Prime Minister Siga's eulogy really captured that, didn't it?
Yeah, Edward Siga said Marley was an experience which left an indelible imprint with each encounter. He said Marley is part of the collective consciousness of the nation, and that feels absolutely right.
And that consciousness just kept growing after his death. The legacy exploded.
The numbers are just mind-blowing. That greatest hits album, Legend, released in 1984, still the best-selling reggae album of all time, by far. Estimated sales overall, over 75 million records worldwide.
And the official honors kept coming, too.
Oh, yeah. Jamaica's Order of Merit. Induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in '94. A Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2001. And of course, Time magazine calling Exodus the album of the century back in '99.
But that massive global success, the commercialization, it creates a tension, doesn't it? A paradox.
It absolutely does. And this is where, we have to look critically. There's definitely a tension between Marley the revolutionary, the guy fighting Babylon, and Marley the icon, whose face is on T-shirts, coffee mugs, everything.
Has his message been diluted?
Well, some critics argue that. Author Dave Thompson wrote about this kind of pacification, even emasculation, of Marley's public image.
What did he mean by that?
He argued that the real Marley, the ghetto kid who dreamed of Che Guevara and the Black Panthers, whose lyrics were often warnings, calls to action, sometimes gets replaced by this image of just smiling benevolence, where the songs become easy listening, just candy from a gumball machine, as he put it, polite radio fodder.
That's a powerful critique. It forces you to remember the fire, the anger, the resistance behind the peace and love message.
Exactly. We have to remember the context, the struggle. But that said, even with all the commercialization, the core message still cuts through, doesn't it?
I think so.
His music continues to resonate everywhere as a symbol of freedom, of resistance, of unity. You still hear it at protests. Indigenous groups around the world revere him, like the Hopi and Havasupai tribes in North America, communities all across Africa and Asia. That revolutionary voice, somehow, it endures, regardless of the T-shirts. #tagoutro.
So we've traced this incredible arc from the complex realities of growing up in Trenchtown through that bizarre detour working in a Chrysler plant as Donald Marley.
Still can't quite picture that.
Right. All the way to becoming this global prophet. Someone whose own struggles against political violence, against the disease that took him too soon, just seemed to amplify his message of unity, of redemption.
And you see his determination to define himself, to control his own narrative in everything, even in small things.
Like the BMW story.
Yeah, exactly. He famously owned BMWs. And when people asked him why, this symbol of Western luxury,
What did he say?
he said, for him, BMW didn't stand for Bavarian Motor Works. It stood for Bob Marley and the Wailers.
That's brilliant.
Isn't it? He just took this established symbol of Babylonian power and wealth and just flipped it, reclaimed it, renamed it to reflect himself, his band, his movement. He was constantly reshaping the world around him in his own image.
He really was, constantly renaming the world. Which leaves us with maybe one final thought, something for you, the listener, to really chew on. He was born Nestor Robert, became Robert Nesta. He became the iconic Rasta prophet Bob Marley. But then, right at the end, he embraces Ethiopian Orthodox Christianity, becomes Berhone Selassie, Light of the Trinity.
It's a profound final chapter.
So the question is, considering how central Rastafari was to his identity, his music, his entire mission for most of his adult life, how does that final spiritual choice complicate his legacy? Or maybe, does it complete it somehow? What does Berhone Selassie add to our understanding of Bob Marley, the man who truly shook the world?
Something to meditate on.
Definitely. Until next time, keep seeking that fire, keep digging deeper.